Hi, and welcome back to Inside Adidas Terrex here at our team chalet in the Chamonix Valley. Before we get started today, we weren't on with you yesterday, and that's because there was a terrible tragedy during the TDS race. Early Wednesday morning, another runner unfortunately had a fall and lost his life. And it greatly impacted the race and I think the day yesterday. It's also impacted this whole week. They took a moment at the beginning of OCC today to honor and remember him and to try to celebrate and bring his energy with them around the mountain. And I'm hoping that CCC and UTMB tomorrow will continue that, to carry his energy around the mountain with them. That being said, our TDS athletes yesterday did finish. They ran through the night, they fought hard, and Cordis got a top 15, and Ekaterina fought so hard to hang on for fourth place. OCC, the 55K, went off seamlessly this morning, with many of our athletes fighting for incredible positions. We had two women, Yasmin and Taylor, in the top 10, and we had three guys in the top 10, two in the top 3, with exceptional performances from Robbie Simpson, Petter Engdahl, and Moritz, our German. It was really, really cool to watch. But joining me today for a couple minutes before she races CCT tomorrow is Abby Hall. Abby, I'm so happy to get to spend time with you this week.
Me too. This is great.
It's great. During the pandemic, obviously, everything kind of hit pause. We didn't get to see each other. We didn't get to travel here. We didn't get to do the races that we love. And we took on other projects during that time. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about how the pandemic influenced your 2020 and what you decided to do at that time.
Well, I mean, it definitely, impacted so many of us in so many different ways at home and personal lives and jobs and things like that. But, it was definitely an interesting year in terms of running goals. There are a lot of projects like, you and I talk about this stuff where there's like 5-year goals, 10-year goals, long-term goals.
Lifetime goals.
Exactly. And I kind of bit off one of those goals that I thought was going to be way further down the road. So I went back to the John Muir Trail, also known as the Numapoyo, and I revisited a trail that was super important to me. It was one of my first big goals in the sport, and I went for a supported attempt a few years ago, actually about 5 years ago. And it really was kind of the start of the entry point for me in the sport of big goals, big failure, really being in love with the process of pursuing these things. Except I put a little twist on it and decided to try and go for the unsupported record this time. So that was my 2020 plot twist.
Yeah, and can you, just so people at home know, because we say, oh, I did this trail, I attempted this trail. Can you tell us a little bit about that trail so that we can understand, try to understand, wrap our brains around the fact that you undertook this thing solo as well.
Right. Yeah, so it's about a 220-mile trail from Whitney Portal, which is at the base of Mount Whitney, the highest point in the contiguous U.S., to Yosemite Valley, to Happy Isles in Yosemite Valley. So it's really through some of the most, untarnished, pure terrain of the Sierra, just going over rugged mountain passes, beautiful turquoise lakes, overlapping a lot of what our teammate Tim did out in PCT. And it's a really special place to me. So yeah, really undertaking that solo, part of the reason for that was, I wanted to be able to come back to a setting like this, to a race, with more experience of how to manage myself and to not always need to depend on my crew, to be able to be really in touch with my body and how I'm feeling during an effort, and to know I can take care of myself when we're in these big, rugged places that we love so much.
Yeah, and how different is it to undertake something like this solo or even supported in comparison to being somewhere like this for CCC?
Right. Well, I think in a setting like CCC, like tomorrow, my goal is to go out there and take a lot of risks. And on something like John Muir Trail, you're constantly needing to stay below that line of what risk is, constantly needing to be kind of, prepared for any range of scenarios, knowing that there's not someone there to help you out of it.
There's not room for failure in that setting.
Exactly.
That's kind of scary.
It is.
That's kind of intimidating. So how many nights, to me, I'm like, being out there by myself overnight seems really scary for me. And I know going in, that was a concern of yours. How did that play out?
Totally. I think the way I kind of think about like the whole approach and prep was just kind of fear management.
Yes.
And so I had four overnights out there solo. So I slept in total for about 6 hours and 20 minutes over the 4 days and 11 hours that I was out there. So the first 3 nights I slept for about 2 hours, and then the last night I mainly skipped sleep and did 2 10-minute naps as I was getting really close to trying to make that FKT.
And I did my own FKT last year, and it was shorter, significantly shorter. And I had weird hallucination stuff. How did that play out? Not sleeping at all is really hard on the brain. Like, how did that work?
Well, like hallucinating by myself was like new and scary. Like usually when I've had hallucination experiences before, it's like Cortis and I are deep in the mountains, or like I've got, a pacer next to me telling me that the thing is not what I think it is. But I was kind of having to like talk myself out of these things, which was new for me. But it was like a really cool step in, I'm really interested in like the mental side of these things and the confidence building and the fear management, as I put it. And so for me, this was like a big step in wrapping my brain around what that looks like for me to be successful.
Yeah, I feel like you could learn a lot about yourself that's very different from racing. So I guess kind of in summary, what can we, obviously I think most of us we're drawn to races, right? It's competition, it's a safe space, it's proving yourself against yourself and against other people. What can people at home, if they want to undertake something like this, like give them a reason why? Like, why should they do this over signing up for a race?
I mean, I think it's really teaching you about you, which is like that the things that I learned about myself on that FKT project and undertaking were just, some of the biggest things I've learned in the sport. Some of the like hardest moments yield, some of the biggest lessons and the biggest foundation of confidence for things moving forward. So I think, the greater the challenge is, the more we have to learn.
Yeah, that's so special. And I can't wait to kind of combine this figuring out a race season with some project stuff. And I think the pandemic taught us that. Well, we're going to let you go so you can rest for CCC because that's a big deal starting tomorrow morning. Abby, thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us. We're going to take a short break and bring some Tom's trail tips to you. And we'll be back in just a little bit with our other teammate, Holly Page.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 2, and here is the Tom's top trail tips. So today we're going to focus on mental strength and mindset when we're racing. So a lot of people ask me, what mind games do I play when I'm out racing to get the best from myself, and sort of the mental strength question. So for me, I guess there's sort of 3 real top tips today. So firstly is when you're stood on the start line and you're getting a little bit anxious and you're getting a little bit nervous, think about the training that you have done rather than the training that you have not done. Yes, you can always do more, things could have always got a little bit better in training, but actually they didn't. And what happened is you did what you did, and that is going to be enough, hopefully, to get you to the end of the race and to perform at your best. And I find that also helps me when I'm training, because I know at some point I'm going to be stood on the start line and I'm going to want to be able to have given absolutely 100% of effort, so then I can perform my best. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to visualize the course before. So what I like to do is I like to run the course beforehand when I've got the time, so then I know where the hard climbs are, where the runnable sections are, and then what I will do is I will visualize the areas of the course where I know that I can work a little bit harder. And I also just find that helps to break the course down into different sections that just makes it far more manageable for me. And then the third one is very similar. I break the course down into to bite-sized manageable chunks so that I don't think about a 100k race as 100k. I might think about it as sort of 5 20k sections. And for me, I just find it so much easier. I'm not sort of worrying about what's going to happen in 90 kilometers, but actually I'm worrying about what's right in front of me. So yeah, I think for me, the mental strength side of things is, it is a really important issue, and people maybe don't speak about it enough and focus on the physical strength, but actually if you can be at race day at 100% with your mental strength, then you'll have a great day. So that's the end of Tom's top tips for today. Tune back tomorrow for some more tips.
Saturday morning. Yeah, here we go. Hi, welcome back. I'm here with our teammate Holly Page.
Hello.
Holly and I are not racing this week. unfortunately, but we get to hang out with you instead and support our teammates, which is worth it in a way. We like supporting them. Of course, we both want to be racing, but we're both injured, and injuries kind of suck. And as runners out there, you too have experienced or will experience a running injury. So we want to talk a little bit about what that's like and how we have to manage it. So can you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on and how you're trying to process this, like how to move, what's the next step forward?
Yeah, if only I knew. So I'm struggling with an injury and have been for the last couple of months. And it's one of those things that like starts off as a niggle and then just seems to get worse, and then you do what the physio tells you to do, and then in my case that hasn't worked, and so then I do what a different person tells me, and that hasn't worked. And so I'm kind of going through this cycle of not really knowing like what to do next.
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating, especially when it's like I'm one of these people who likes to go and do like cool things. I love like going off in the mountains, traveling. Like it was really frustrating last year, obviously, not being able to come out here and like not be able to see the team, not be able to do all the things I love doing. And then this year, of course, now I finally made it out to the Alps. And then it's like, oh, no, actually you can't go. You can look at the mountains, but you can't go into them.
The pandemic injury double whammy is not fun.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, it could be worse. We've got like great views, great company. I've been like cycling around, cheering on my teammates. So, I mean, people have said, oh, it must be so hard. Like, obviously, you're surrounded by runners talking about races that you're not doing. But I'm just kind of accepting of it. You know, it's like, okay, well, I can't race. That's fine.
So it seems like acceptance is like that first step as to moving forward with any.
Yeah,
injury.
and like there's other stuff going on. Like I have another job as well, and so I like focus on that as well. And I think that's when it's important to have like another focus as well, not just okay, this is my like
everything.
This is my everything, because then if that's taken away, then you're left with nothing. So it's good to have lots of different balls going in different places.
Yeah,
that sounds weird.
No, yeah, kind of. I found that it's really important to like not fight what I can't do and kind of just have to lean into what I can do.
Exactly.
So like that's acceptance. So how then do you like stay optimistic?
Yeah, I mean, so again, it's like I gradually got sports taken away from me. It was like, well, I can hike, and then no. And then I can bike, no. And then it was, okay, you can go swimming. Well, I'm really bad at swimming, and just dislike being in a swimming pool environment. But anyway, I've been aqua jogging in the pool in Chamonix, which is obviously what I came here to do. You can see the Aiguille du Midi from the swimming pool. It's inside, but it's like, as you make a bit of progress, you see it, and then it disappears again. But yeah, so that's been great fun. Just going around in a little circle.
Once again, accepting it.
But then I also have a wetsuit in my van, so I was like, okay, let's take aqua jogging in a pool and go extreme aqua jogging. So I've been going aqua jogging in the glacial river, just because it makes me feel more alive and more like, woohoo, this is something. It's not great exercise, but it feels like.
Yeah, well, it's that importance. There's that physical fitness importance that like that's one of the reasons why some of us exercise, right? Is because it's to stay fit. But there's this importance of just moving your body from a therapeutic level.
Yeah, there's a mental side to it. Like you want to feel, I don't know, there's something that you get from running, obviously, that makes you feel great. And when you don't get those endorphins, you got to find them somewhere else. So going like jumping around, not jumping so much, but like bobbing around in the river is one way of doing that.
Yeah,
and just trying to stay
adapting.
positive, like looking around, okay, what else is going on in the world? Like obviously what happened yesterday in the TDS, it puts everything into perspective. You're like, okay, like people are in a much worse situation to me. I'm not going to just sit here and moan about my poor ankle tendon. Like, which really helps, I think.
It's hard to complain about things when other things are so much worse.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm aqua jogging in a river, not my first choice, but
I'm in a
adapting.
river in the Alps.
I'm adapting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very creative strategy to manage this. Is that something that you've employed in the past with injuries or with like training in general?
I mean, so like 2 years ago, I broke my foot on a training camp when you were there,
Yeah.
actually. And then I'd planned to go to Japan and race, for example. But obviously I couldn't race, so I just took my bike and went cycle touring around Japan instead.
Yeah.
And like had a great time and had a little adventure. And that's something I wouldn't have necessarily done. You know, it's just saying, okay, I can't do this, but as you say, I can do something else.
Yeah, once
Like-
again, it's adapting. You're like, I'm not going to let this injury stop me from going to this place I really want to go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to figure out a new way
A different way of doing it.
to experience
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's really, I think that's really,
Yeah.
really important and a really great take on dealing with the frustration of injury, the need to adapt.
Yeah. And also I think like having an end goal really helps.
Yeah.
That's been difficult in my case because the end goal keeps moving.
Same.
But when you have like some light at the end of the tunnel, you're like, okay, you know, this 6-week period in the greater scheme of my life is not very long. Like, let's get over it. Like, just do something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard, but
Yeah.
but I still get actually just quite excited watching everybody else racing. Like yesterday I was like felt really emotional watching a Katarina come in. I was like, oh, she's pushing so hard, and like yeah, I feel like as emotional as I would be if I was running.
Yeah.
So you can still get all the buzz from the races.
Do you think that's like an important part of injury is like, I think some of us get injured and then we shut down. We like shy away from our communities, from these events, from that kind of stuff. Like, is it better than to like embrace the community in just like a different way if possible?
Yeah, I mean that's because that's
hard.
the other thing. I was like, okay, this is like I've been in Chamonix for about 6 weeks now, like staying with the team. Everyone's going out, talking about the race, and like
Picking up packets.
But I mean, yeah, it's a choice though, that like, you know, to come and spend time with people. I think everyone's still really supportive. They understand. So I think to some extent, yeah, you don't want to just like, you want to have some kind of time away just to be like, okay, focus on something else for a little bit. But the community's always there, and everybody you speak to who's a runner has had something, so they can understand, empathize with you.
Yeah, I think like everyone's been hurt.
It's like, oh, that happened to me. Oh yeah, I had that. Oh, someone I know had that. Oh, and like the more people you talk to, then you realize actually this is not a unique situation to you. Like everybody's been through it.
It's still hard. It's hard when you like, but I think it's important to wallow in it. I think it's important to feel
a little
bad.
bit, yeah. I mean, that's
the
the thing. I'm always saying, yeah, I have perspective, but then sometimes I'm like, oh.
Like when you're surrounded by this in this environment, it's hard, I think, to sometimes remove yourself.
Yeah. And everything's relative as well. Like what's important to you is like running is important to me, and so when you take that away, it's like, okay. Yeah, that is sad. I'm allowed to be sad, even though it's in the greater scheme of the world, not that important. But for me, that's important, and I think that's important for people to remember when you're injured.
Yeah, I've shed a few tears in the last couple months.
Me too.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. So if there's any, what would be like parting words to young runners or new runners who either are injured or have yet to be injured? So what should they think about when they have that doctor or that physio say, hey, you need to take 4 weeks off?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to listen to them and take those 4 weeks off and not be thinking, but I have a race in 6 weeks, so I need to stay fit for that race. And just really take that time to make sure you don't get any long-term injuries from not dealing with it right at the start. Because otherwise, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, you'll be like,
The rest of your career.
I wish I'd just taken those 4 weeks, and then I would be fine. So yeah, just having patience, I think, is really key.
Yeah, let your past self let your future self thank your past self a little bit, right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
Protect
it's very
your future
hard,
self.
but yeah, there's a few things I wish I'd done in the past now, but
that's okay. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, well, we're still here. We're still going to enjoy this wonderful valley and the wonderful races going on, and cheer for our teammates and probably cry watching them finish races. I got emotional yesterday.
I can't stand at the finish of UTMB without crying.
Bawling. So thank you so much for talking about a really hard topic with us today. I know
That's
it's hard sitting in it, but thank you for sitting with us in it. Thank you all for tuning in today. We will be back tomorrow. We will be following our CCC athletes, the 100K race, which is going to be so exciting.
Yeah.
And we'll be starting to follow our UTMB athletes who start tomorrow evening. So we will be seeing you all then. We're so excited. We'll see you then.